Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show, and welcome to show number 300. Ooh, it's 300. Is that amazing? We've done 300 episodes of this show. Oh man, in a year. We started January 1st. Isn't that amazing?
Less than a year. Yeah, in 11 months.
Or
so.
Yeah, and so I just want to thank everybody. Thank Kaustubha and Mara especially for making this all happen. Tom Essig has been a big part of the crew, as well as everybody who just shows up regularly for my benefit. It makes it seem like I'm doing some benefit for other people. This is for my benefit, this show. This is like the first and foremost reason that I do this show, is to hear the Bhagavatam with accountability every day. So I thank everybody, because it's radically changed my life since 300 episodes ago.
Thank you, Raghu.
Thank you, Prabhus. And you know what? Thank you guys for just dealing with me. I know I'm a handful at 5 in the morning. I know I can get that. And I know I'm a little too loud for some people. They just like can't, they don't have the ears to stomach me first thing in the morning. So I know I say sometimes some crazy things. I'm just asking everybody in advance, please take no offense. I don't mean any. And also my opinions change sometimes. I'm subject to change. Thank you. And so any other announcements we want to make, Kaustubha?
Mara?
Not really.
I hope everybody had a good... I made some incredible pie yesterday. I just want to say that. I made a Japanese sweet potato pie. It was like a purple pie. It was me and my 6-year-old made it. Delicious. And I'm stuffed.
It's supposed to be purple?
Well, Japanese sweet potatoes are purple. So it was. Yeah, it was a nice day. I hope you guys had a good day. I have something funny queued up, and I'm just not getting it to my phone. I'm trying to multitask. All right, let's just dive into this then, because we're in a good space in the Srimad Bhagavatam. 300 episodes. That's like something. That's like some type of milestone, Kaustubha.
It looks like for the year we'll finish the first and second canto.
Well, all right. It's been only a year to get through 2 books. That's how you're supposed to read these books, right?
Well, it's one way. Take your time with it. Discuss it. Contemplate it. Reflect on it.
All right. Let's dive in here. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan. Unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all those troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmadatam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Uh-oh.
That was for our 300th episode. I just,
Okay.
it got a little queued up late, but all right. So we are in the second canto. Isn't that exciting? Second canto, chapter 9. And this is entitled, what's the title of this costume?
It's entitled Answers by Citing the Lord's Version.
Right.
We read the first text yesterday.
We only made it through one text yesterday, huh?
That's fine. Sometimes it's been right with one text.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
okay.
let's read that one again. And you know, I thought maybe let's read this and let's maybe just dip into the Bhagavad Gita just a bit before we move on to texts 2 and 3 today.
I think it's safe to say that after you start studying the Bhagavatam,
Yeah.
the Bhagavad Gita, which is a whole big mouthful to swallow, becomes really, really digestible and understandable.
Yeah.
You know?
So.
All right, so the first text, Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, O king, one is influenced by the energy. Did I say this right? Unless one is influenced by the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no meaning to the relationship of the pure soul in pure consciousness with the material body. That relationship is just like a dreamer's seeing his own body working.
Yeah. So this idea of a dream, of a reflection. These are if we want to take our yoga practice to the next level. I know that's the intention of a lot of our listeners, of ourselves, right? We want to go deeper into this practice. And this is where so much of that work lies, is like contemplating, being able to step away, step back from my usual perspective and see my existence from a broader perspective.
Well,
and so, yeah.
I was going to say, if this verse is true, right?
Yeah.
Like saying, if this is true, this is such a game-changing, mind-blowing, massive different take of reality. That means everybody that's driving me crazy, you got somebody in your life that's driving you crazy. Sometimes we have teams of people driving us crazy, or groups of people, or political parties driving us crazy, or, countries driving us crazy, or whatever it is. Whatever's driving you crazy, when you really get into this verse, you realize how puny and insignificant this existence of Raghunath in this world is. It's so tiny that why are we doing, and what we do when we get caught up in the bodily conception is we create this world of friends and enemies. And the concept of enemies, and this person's against me, and this person caused me trouble, and this person, these are tying us tighter and tighter within this material world. And keeping the illusion perpetuated lifetime after lifetime. This is such a major game-changing verse if you could just step out and see yourself as something completely different than what we've identified with or culture has told us to identify with ever. It's almost like, if you believe in this verse, you've got like a whole different experience than the whole rest of the world.
That's true.
But it's a hard thing to swallow. It's just like, that means everything I based my life on is sort of fake.
Yeah, well, you say hard, and I don't think it's necessarily hard in this. I think it's like hard in the sense that it's like it's foreign or alien to us.
Right.
And it's saying here, unless one is influenced by the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there's no meaning to the relationship of the pure soul, the self, me, with the material body. Now, but the fact is we are influenced by that energy, right? And that's talking about the bewildering energy of Krishna, that energy that we've called upon, in a sense, due to our desire, that we want the illusion. Give us the blue pill or whatever the pill is, the illusion pill. because we don't want reality. We want to enter into the illusion where we can be the controller, where we can be the enjoyer, the central figure in the equation. And so so we accept that, according to this verse, according to this idea, we accept that illusion, that the influence of that covering energy, and we begin to dream. We begin to accept what's unreal for what's real. And so there's that relationship between, the relationship between myself and the body is something that it seems like I am this body, but we're just temporarily in a state of identifying with it. Sometimes there's well, let me read these verses from Gita, and then I'll share another analogy. So this is from the 5th chapter, and in the 16th verse, or in the 15th verse of the 5th chapter, it said, embodied beings are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge. Okay, and that's exactly what we're talking about here, that there's an influence that covers our knowledge, right? It's a necessary influence to allow us to think that we're designed as the enjoyers of this world. But then text 16 says, when, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then their knowledge reveals everything as the sun lights up everything in the daytime. I've always really loved this verse, There's something to me that's fascinating or attractive about the idea of awakening. Like when one's spiritual life awakens.
Right.
There's, a lot of times I think it's maybe conveyed in art or something like that. It's like happening in an instant.
Like a halo.
Well, in other words, like there was a moment where everything changed. Like
Sadhguru.
I don't know anything about Sadhguru.
When Sadhguru says he was riding his motorcycle, he parked it under a tree, and all of a sudden he was like awakened.
Yeah, so I don't have.
I don't buy it. I don't buy
faith
it
in those kind of things. But like in the Bible, you have, was it
Saul? Saul fell off the horse. Paul.
Yeah, who had just he was totally super, not only materialistic. He was like a tormentor of the Christians, right?
Yeah, he was a Christian tormentor. And then he had it fell off his donkey. He fell off his donkey. He heard we have that a lot in the Vedas. You hear these, what's that called? The Akash, the unembodied voice from the sky.
Yeah. Akashvani or something, instruction.
Yeah, he heard some instruction from the sky. He took
I think a bright light knocked him right off his horse, and then everything changed. But it may not be an instant thing, or spiritual awakening. It may be a more gradual thing. But I think it is worth trying to be conscious of and noting important realizations that we get, or certain feelings that we get, and kind of mark them as milestones, and try to use those as something that we can hold on to and not go back, But this idea of this, that knowledge lighting everything up, like the sun lights up everything in the daytime. It's kind of like the sun, every other kind of light becomes insignificant when the sunlight appears, and any kind of ignorance that was there in darkness, any kind of fear that was there in darkness becomes eliminated just when you begin to see the sun. And so, there's an analogy used sometimes, is like you go into the movie theater, and this is relating to what we're talking about here and what we're going to be talking about more today, that the false designation with the body, the idea that I am this body. But if you go into a movie theater, which is something like a dream, right?
Right.
You think you're seeing people, and you're beginning to identify with people. Those aren't people. That's just particles of light on a screen that you're looking at, right? There's no person there. And they're having, conversations and playing out different, the plots and so on. The art is, if a director and a whole film crew and of course the actors, if they play their role really well, then the illusion is strong, and you enter into the illusion. And that's the idea. That's what we're trying to do in the movies here, right? You're trying to enter into that world. And so when something sad happens, we become emotionally affected by it, even though nothing sad happened. Right? There's just the illusion of, the reflection of something sad happening, but it's so realistic that we accept it as real. So there's particles, they darken the movie theater, right? You get rid of all the light, you sit in the dark, and then you watch these images on the screen. But as soon as the light comes on at the end, right? Like, in other words, even if you're imagine you're in a movie theater, you're deeply absorbed in the
Titanic,
and the ship is going down and everyone's about to drown.
They loved each other.
They love each other now. Yeah, but then imagine if in that deep emotional, moment, someone flips on the lights in the movie theater. Well, immediately you're shaken, or you could say you're awakened from that illusion, right? And you're like, oh, hey, I was just watching a movie. One moment you're like, they're gonna drown, and the next instant you're like, oh, this is a movie.
This isn't even real.
This isn't real.
Do you feel like you're gonna get hit with that one day when you're like, when you're losing your life, you're gonna be like, oh my God, I was taking this stuff so seriously.
Well, in other words, my point is that through knowledge, saying here that knowledge lights up everything like the sun lights up everything in the daytime. It reveals everything. It reveals my illusion. It gives me a different perspective. And so similarly, by contemplating, reflecting on what Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita are providing, it's meant to light everything up like that. And we're meant to, not just theoretically, but to fully understand that I'm not this body, that this body is just a temporary vehicle that I'm passing through for just a moment. And then I'll pass through another one. I pass through many of them. I pass through so many of them. And each time I'm in that body, I identify with it so strongly that I'm convinced that this is me. I'm convinced that this is who I am. This is my nationality. This is my gender. That I'm this, I'm that. And each time we fully buy into that illusion, and it's only this knowledge that can wake us up, that can shake us up, that can give us that clear perspective. And when we get, and there's no true happiness, there's no true love, until that's all cleared up. Okay, and so these verses today that we're going to get into, it deals with how that misconception of I am this body plays out, and these are terms that we'll find throughout Bhagavatam. It plays out in terms of thinking, in terms of I and mine, right? I and mine. All right.
I know all about that.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. The illusion, this is text 2. The illusioned living entity, me, the illusioned living entity, appears in so many forms offered by the external energy of the Lord. So this is our concept of reincarnation. Mm-hmm. And we are in many forms in this lifetime. In this lifetime, I've had many, many different body types. I've had different minds too. That's an interesting thing also. It's like, it's not like my body is just changing in this lifetime. I've had a completely different mind than my mind presently from a 17-year-old mind. Like, I think different. Mm-hmm. I have a concept of myself differently. And then, of course, you extend that when this body when the lights go out in this body and you enter a new body, and you can become completely convinced that you're this form with this subtle body, this type of mind and intelligence. So the illusion living entity appears in so many forms offered by the external energy of the Lord. While enjoying in the gunas, or in the modes of material nature, the encaged, I like that, the encaged spirit soul, or the encaged living entity, misconceives thinking in terms of I and mine. Right? I'm thinking right now, I'm at my computer, I'm at my desk, there's my family, these are my children. I'm upset when this happens to my child. I'm happy if my child does this. I'm having a great time with my family, or and love my new car, or whatever it is. It's this concept of this is mine, and everything here of this temporary world is permanent. That's the big illusion. The illusion of life. We are falling in love with the temporary. We're falling in love with everything that's about to be ripped out of our hands. Some of us are going through it right now. We have a heartbreak. Of course you have a heartbreak. We're falling in love with the temporary. If it doesn't leave us now, it's going to leave us sometime. It's going to leave us at some point, because this is it's like investing your real estate savings in a sandcastle on the beach, and the tide's coming in. Duh.
How poetic.
Thank you. I've been saving that one.
Okay.
You know that here. That you know what that deserves, Kaustubha?
No, not a sound. You're not getting the whole sound effect thing, are you? He's got a new toy.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. So again, this verse is stating that we go through many different forms, right? Right now, I'm in a male form. Next, I may be in a female form. Then I might be in a tree form. Then I might be, at one point I was in a child's form. Then I was in a teenage form. Now I'm in a older person's form. We go through many different forms. And while we're in those forms, what we're trying to do in this world is we're trying to enjoy the material energy, the modes of material nature, these three different energies which comprise the larger material energy. We because we focus on that I am this body, I am this form, we have the misconception that my happiness will come through satisfying the form. And so we waste our days and our nights in pursuance of satisfying the form, and at the same time never being satisfied. And the way that plays out is in thinking in terms of I and mine. I am this body, right? And everything in relation to this is mine. There's an explanation in an earlier verse where Prabhupada also speaks about this I and mine. And he says, false egoism is exhibited by thinking oneself to be the enjoyer of the world and thinking everything in the world to be meant for the enjoyment of oneself only, right? So I'm the enjoyer and everything is mine. Right? The whole materialistic world is moving under such false egoism as I and mine. And so, that's where we're at. Now, the next verse talks about the waking up part. Text 3.
Text 3?
Yeah.
As soon as the living entity becomes situated in his constitutional glory and begins to enjoy the transcendence beyond time and material energy, he at once gives up the two misconceptions of life, I and mine, and thus becomes fully manifested as the pure self. Can I tell you a crazy story?
Okay.
But there's deep truth in the story.
No, you wouldn't tell me if there wasn't.
No, but it has something to do with this. It has everything to do with this, but I haven't thought about this story in a long time. And when you read this verse before, it just sort of came up to me. I hope I get this right.
Which verse?
When we were reading these verses and you were speaking, I had this flashback to this story, a really scary story. Somebody told me right after class. I was talking about temporality and death, and then I went, and one of my students was talking to another student, and they said that, and this is when I taught in Beverly Hills, so very well-to-do people, and this one lady said, I had a sister that died. And it was a really peculiar situation. We were visiting our family in Egypt, or we were on a family vacation. And I was 15, and my sister was 14. My sister met this guy, her age, from America, who was visiting. And I left the room, and they were just hanging out. He seemed like a nice guy. And then I came back in the room, and the guy was there, and my sister wasn't there. And he had pushed her out the window. He had killed my sister. And anyway, this lady's like revealing all this stuff to me right after class. It was like devastating, shattering. And her parents came in. It was a whole thing. My sister had just been murdered. And he said, no. And the kid just said, she just jumped out the window. And she was like, I know you're thinking, where are you going with this, Raghunath? Anyway, it was like this shocking thing, and I was trying to like comfort this lady, but she was very cool-headed when she shared this with me. And then she said, the hotel owner from Egypt was looking at my father. My father was crying, and we were all crying. And the hotel owner was saying all this stuff like, "Be a man. Don't have." This guy from Egypt. Be a man. Be above this. This happens. Like this very stoic thing. His daughter just died. He's saying, be a man. Get rid of your emotions. Just go forward. And so anyway, that came into mind because there's some cultures have this idea of this is part one. Some ideas have this idea of stoicism. Just like, don't deal with those emotions, let it go, be detached. You hear that in the yoga community all the time, be detached. That only makes sense if you're connected to spirit, be detached. And you understand, like, I can't possess this person, that type of stoicism. Otherwise, it just means be heartless. So there's a place for that type of detachment. But this other person, this lady, I said, how did you ever come to terms with that ever? And she said, my sister came to me afterwards because I was so upset. And it took 2 weeks, and my sister came to me in person, in a spirit form, and said, I'm okay. Let go of me so I can fully leave. Now, I know you're thinking, well, this is sort of a kooky story, a weird story. It is sort of a kooky, weird story. It is but this is a true story, and she shared this with me. And when we are attached to people in this manifestation, I feel like they're held here, and we hold them here. And part of sort of like letting go of life is to have the deep understanding that we can't possess. Even though we're sort of close and in love, part of like our existence in this world is to let go of loved ones. And for loved ones also to let go of the past, or else they can't move on to the future. I think that's the concept of what a ghost is they're held to this place. So that came up. I felt like that was an interesting thing to say. And also this concept of detachment from this hotel owner who just sort of was telling people to cut all type of emotional feeling. We are going to have emotional feelings even in loss. But at least having the spiritual understanding that actually, yeah, we do love in this world, but we don't possess in this world. And to even go into life understanding that, it at least can cushion the fall of material existence, which is very painful in a world of gain and loss. I hope that wasn't too much of a bizarre distraction.
Just a bit, but
It was sort of a bit. It was sort of a bit. It came up. I haven't thought of that story in years. I just thought I'd share it.
Thank you.
So if you didn't like that story, you can write that on the board if it was useful. Give me some info in the chat board what you thought of that.
Story.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
So why don't we read these two verses again and then dip into the commentaries of them? All right.
All right.
The illusion living entity appears in so many forms offered by the external energy of the Lord, the material energy. While enjoying the modes of material nature, the encaged living entity misconceives, thinking in terms of I and mine. As soon as the living entity becomes situated in his, I like this term, constitutional glory, right? Sat Chit Ananda, right? I'm eternal, I'm blissful, I'm full of knowledge. That's our constitutional glory. But we're just out of touch with it. As soon as the living entity becomes situated in its constitutional glory and begins to enjoy the transcendence beyond time and material energy, it once gives up two misconceptions of life, I and mine, and thus becomes fully manifested as the pure self, the true self, right? And I think it's interesting, if you look at these two verses, one, if you read the first one, it's saying, they take on different forms and we enjoy the material nature as if there's something wrong with enjoyment. It's just a misconception of enjoyment. By nature, we seek enjoyment. But so in the next verse, it says that one enjoys transcendence beyond time and material energy. Right? The material energy, well, when you think of the material energy, you can think of, we've used the virtual reality analogy that we're kind of moving through a false world in a sense, and that it's programmed in three different ways. There's the three gunas, the three modes of material nature, which each has an effect when we come in contact with it on our consciousness. One of those energies, leads us, kind of conditions us towards contentment and lucid thought. One of them conditions us towards hankering for more, and one of them conditions us towards laziness or destruction, right? So those are the three modes of nature. And then there's also time, and then there's also the law of karma. That's how this material energy moves and functions. And so it's saying here that the real true enjoyment, not the false illusory enjoyment, the looking at the movie, the being in a dream enjoyment, but the true enjoyment, it takes place beyond time. It takes place beyond the gunas, beyond the material energy. It takes place beyond the law of karma. Those factors, they operate within the material energy, and they make it such that the true enjoyment can never be found, because it's always mixed and blended in with loss and pain, as you started the talk today, right?
You know, I really like I really like the movie analogy, even better than virtual reality, because we can all relate to movies. And like the three gunas, there is like the goodness would be like a happy, pleasant movie where you're sort of laughing and it's pleasant. And then you have these intense romantic movies where there's attachment and there's ups and downs and pulling of the heart back and forth and heartbreaking and falling deeply in love. And then there is the full-on chainsaw massacre movie. These are like the three gunas, and sometimes it's a little your movie, so to speak. It's a combination of all three of those.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just living in chainsaw massacre, and sometimes it's all romance, and sometimes it's just pleasant and nice. And so,
and again, I think that's really helpful what you're sharing. And but just to be clear, like Rajagun, when we say passion, doesn't just mean romance, but it means like I want something that I don't have, right? The
sure.
feeling of being incomplete and needing something that I don't have is passion. And so again, this verse is saying that it's not that there's something wrong with enjoyment, but our mistake is that we think the enjoyment of the body is what will fulfill me, right?
Right.
Or even the enjoyment of the mind, the mind, which is being programmed differently at so many different stages of life, as you mentioned earlier, or what to speak of as we move through entirely different bodies or even different species. The mind is going to be reprogrammed and reset. And then we'll think, oh, I need to satisfy this mind. No, it's not that mind that you need to satisfy. What you need to understand is you're not that mind. You're not that body. And then your true nature is naturally awakened.
It's the stepping away from the movie.
Step away from or turn on the lights, right?
Turn on the lights.
Turn on the lights, and then it all becomes clear. So this is from the commentary to 292, the first verse that we read today. It says, the different forms of the living entities are different dresses offered by the illusory energy. Different dresses. You put one on, take it off, put on another one. According to the modes of nature of the living entity the different forms of the living entities are different dresses offered by the illusory external energy of the Lord, according to the modes of nature the living being desires to enjoy. If I desire this chainsaw massacre, I could get a certain body, like maybe, like of a wolf or a tiger or something. I can rip a being up with my own teeth. If I want to enjoy in a rajasic or sattvic way, I might get a different form. But I'm taking on different forms according to different modes of nature that I desire to enjoy. The external material energy is represented by her three modes, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. So even in the material nature, there's a chance of an independent choice by the living entity. And according to their choice, the material energy offers them different varieties of material bodies. There are 900,000 varieties of material bodies in the water.
900,000 varieties.
Yes.
By the way, this isn't according to modern science. This is just spoken in the Vedas. There's different breakdowns of species.
But some recent modern speculations, and they say it. I mean, they're quite. They say speculations themselves, but they've projected, based on their studies, that they think there might be. I think it was 8,700,000. So it's quite a close. The total here will be 8,400,000 according to the Padma Purana. It's stated in the Padma Purana that there are 8,400,000 species of life, and the breakdown that we're reading right now comes from the Padma Purana.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it says there are 900,000 varieties of material bodies in the water. there are 2 million vegetable bodies, meaning, like plants. There are 1,100,000 forms of reptiles. What it says here, worms and reptiles.
Interesting.
1 million forms of birds. 300,000 different forms of beasts. In other words, like land-dwelling, non-reptilian, I suppose. And then 400,000 human forms, humanoids, right?
400,000 humanoids. Like, what does that mean?
I knew that term humanoid would turn you on right there.
I'm just trying to think. Are we of the same, you and I, or are we actually different? Are we from different species?
Sometimes
You know what I mean?
wonder.
What? You know what I mean? Or like, is this like you, me, and Merritt, we're like one species, and then there's like a whole other species that have tiny little horns,
Yeah,
or like wings, or something like that. Like we just don't see them, or is it just like there's different? There's some people that I walk down the street, I was like, that dude looks just like me. Ever meet people like that? Like, this guy looks just like me. Like, so are we from the same species?
I'm pretty sure we're from the same species, but I think like there's the Devas, there's the Gandharvas, there's the Kinnaras, there's all these different.
I know, but I'm wondering if on Earth I'm talking about, are we in different species? That's what I'm interested in. I know there's angels and higher beings and winged fellows and horned beings. I get that. By the way, on a side note, if you're listening on Zoom, please write on the chat board if you have ever had an experience with a deceased relative, either in a visitation or in a dream. That's a side note. Let's go back to our story.
That's a real side note. Okay.
Well, something I'm talking anyway on that message board. I'm just curious if I'm just talking out my butt, or if people or everyone's doing this. Okay.
So now, continuing. Altogether, there are 8,400,000 varieties of bodies in different planets of the universe, and the living entity is traveling through so many transmigrations according to different modes of enjoying spirit within himself. Okay, so like the way that you started our talk today was you said that if this is true, this just changes everything, right?
It's a game changer.
It's a game changer. So what Bhagavatam is calling upon us, what Prabhupada in his commentary is calling upon us to consider, is saying, consider the source of knowledge. And what it's telling us, that we've traveled through many, many different types of bodies.
It's hard to believe.
And it's perfectly logical. It makes perfect sense. You just have to, it's only hard to believe because we don't want to believe it.
Well, here's the deal, and this is why I love the Bhagavad Gita. If it is a tough pill to swallow, that like I'm looking at David Charles Wilson, like he was a Japanese lady in his last life. I'm just throwing that out there, just thinking that, and if that's so hard to believe, think about, and this is how Krishna explains in the Gita. Think about who you were. I'm 54. When I was 17, I thought so much different than I think now. I looked different. I had a whole different body, right? Not just like an appearance, but down to the molecule. Everything was different. My intelligence was different. My ego, or my conception of self, was different. So in this body, I've witnessed what to speak of my 5-year-old self. In this body, I've witnessed myself in these various costumes.
Okay, Raghu, you're going right with Prabhupada's. You just clicked in again because Prabhupada's just about to go there.
I'm thinking like Prabhupada!
All right. As we continue, he says, even in one particular body, the living entity changes from childhood to boyhood, from boyhood to youth, from youth to old age, and from old age to another body created by his own action, created by his own karma. Right? And of course, this is an allusion to what text in Bhagavad Gita? Hatsi?
If you want the God honest truth, Kaustubha, I was reading the message board. You Hatsi. Everyone's seen a ghost!
Okay, so this Prabhupada here is alluding to verse 213 in the Bhagavad Gita, right?
Dehi komaram yovanam jara, tatadi hantara praptir diras tatra namuyati.
Yeah, so that within one body, or like say, we experience many bodies in one lifetime. Say it that way, right? At one point, we're in the child's body. You know, Raghunath was in a 1-year-old body at one point. He may not remember it, but he was. And, you know, but he probably has some memory of the 3 or 5-year-old body. But where is that body now? Like, even just, you know, chemically, right? Where is that body?
Back in the earth.
In the earth, in the sky, and the water, you know, it's all the elements of that body have separated.
Where's the hair? Where's the saliva? Where is the skin cells from my 5-year-old body?
Even
It's
the
all been
bone
changed.
cells, even the brain cells, you know, they've all died and been replaced by new ones. So it's kind of like if I were sitting in a car, but someone came and changed all 4 tires on the car. And then they came and they changed the windshield wipers. And then they came and they changed the engine. And then they
And
came
the
and,
windshield. Yeah, you
know,
rebuild your car so much it's practically not even the same car. These
but do
people
it
are
so
like,
that it's entirely a different car.
yeah,
And so that's what's happening with our body. We're in an entirely different body than I was as a child, or that I was as a teen, or that I was as a 20 or 30 or 40-year-old person. I'm in a different body now. So that verse, it's a logical kind of presentation, saying, just think about it. If you've been through many bodies, even in this one lifetime, why would you possibly think, what sense does it make to think that my life ends when the body ends? No. It's already been proven that the soul is unaffected by the changes of the body. So it makes sense to think that I take on a new form. Okay.
yeah.
So he goes on. Yeah.
Hold 1 second, because I have a parenting win here I want to share with you. I have a
Okay.
lot of parenting fails, lots of them, like encyclopedias of them. Here was a parenting win. When I first got married and my wife had 2 little kids, I didn't know how to, I didn't know what to teach these kids as a parent, as a new parent. So I started teaching them Bhagavad Gita shlokas. And we'd go through the Bhagavad Gita and I'd say, okay, you learn 10 shlokas and you get a wrist rocket, or I'd give them some type of like present. Little boys. So anyway, we were studying shlokas, and this is one of the verses they learned. Um, and so one day, a couple years later, my wife came back from a movie, and they were only like 7 and 8 or something like that. And my wife came back from a movie, and the older one was crying his eyes out. And I said, "What's the matter?" He said, "Well, we watched this movie. It was a kid's movie, but the kid died in the movie, and it was really tragic and sad." And so the older boy was crying, and the younger boy came up to me and said, Dad, I wasn't upset in this movie." And I said, "Why not? Why is your brother so upset?" And he goes, "Well, Dehi no Shminyata Dehi." He quoted the verse in Sanskrit, and he says, "As the embodied soul continuously passes in this life, from childhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly enters a new body at the time of death. One who is wise is not bewildered by such a change." My point is not just to like wave a banner for my great parenting, although you can take it as that. And throw me a bone. No, but it is to like how just a little bit of knowledge helps us go through tragedy, helps us escape pain, even the pain of a movie that's not even real. What to speak of the pain in life? A little bit of knowledge added to the ups and downs of material world may not make that person come back who's dead, but it may give you a vantage point to cope with in a healthy way our loss, our heartbreak, instead of going into denial, medicating pain, sticking my head in the sand, incredible depression, revisiting that depression again and again, but really just sort of like easing that, softening that pinch that happens in loss.
Yeah. Well, we call it transcendental knowledge, right? It's knowledge of that which is transcendent. It's knowledge of that which is not subject to time. It's knowledge of that which is, knowledge of truth. And so you're right. It's only that transcendental knowledge, which is the balm, which gives
Did
us
you just say the bomb?
balm. No, it's the balm.
It's the bomb. Transcendental knowledge is the bomb, man.
It's the balm that actually eases that suffering, because it's the truth, because it's waking up from the illusion, right? The illusion is going to be mixed with pleasure and pain. The illusion is going to be subject to fear. The the truth is what lights everything up and kind of relieves us from all of that.
I don't know if this is true, but I'm going to ask my Sanskrit guy, who we got to get on a walk-in Wednesday. But I heard that the word shabda, or I'm sorry, shastra, which is we call like sacred literature, the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam is shastra. I heard that comes from shabda, sound, and astra, weapon. The sound weapon, killing avidya or ignorance. What do you think of that?
Yeah.
Have you heard that?
Definitely, I know that it's related to the word astra, and that makes sense. The whole thing seems to make sense. Yeah.
Because I guess we're going to call that our Sanskrit glossary goodie of the day.
Okay. Is like the pre-horse race sound, like the one that we're going to use for everything?
I just got random bugles going. All right.
Okay. So continue with Srila Prabhupada's commentary to 292. The living entity creates their own body by their personal desires, right? It's formed according to fit our desires. And the external energy of the Lord supplies them the exact form by which they can enjoy their desires to the fullest extent. The tiger wanted to enjoy the blood of another animal, and therefore by the grace of the Lord, the material energy supplied him the body of a tiger with facilities for enjoying blood from another animal. Similarly, a living entity desiring to get the body of a demigod in a higher planet can also get it by the grace of the Lord. And if they are intelligent enough, they can desire to get a spiritual body to enjoy the company of the Lord, and they will get it. So the minute freedom of the living entity can be fully utilized. And the Lord is so kind that he will award the living entity the same type of body they desire. The living entity's desiring is like dreaming of a golden mountain. A person knows what a mountain is, and they know what gold is. Out of their desire only, they dream of a golden mountain. And when the dream is over, they see something else in their presence, right? Like they wake up and they see, oh, there's no gold mountain.
Right.
They find in their awakened state that there's neither gold nor mountain, and what to speak of a golden mountain, right? And we'll wake up. I'm not this body. This is not I. And all these things, this is not mine, right? The different positions of the living entity, the different positions of the living entities in the material world under the multifarious manifestations of bodies are due to the misconception of mine and I. The karmī, the person now this is interesting. This is interesting here. Prabhupada's going to flip a little something on us right here, but it's really significant, I think. When I read you an earlier description of how Prabhupada described this I and mine,
yeah,
he said false egoism is exhibited by thinking oneself to be the enjoyer of the world. I am the enjoyer, and thinking everything in the world is meant for the enjoyment of oneself only. This is mine to enjoy, right? Now here, he's going to kind of flip it or take it in another direction, the concept of I and mine. And he's going to apply them to the ideas of the karmī, who thinks my happiness will be found through the material things of this world. And then the which is mine. He relates that to mine. The things of this material world are mine. And the jñānī, or the renouncer of this world, that thinks I am God, or I am, Brahman, like that. So let's see. The different positions of the living entities in the material world under the different multifarious manifestations of body are due to the misconception of mine and I. The karmī thinks of this world as mine, and the jñānī thinks I am everything. The whole material conception of politics, sociology, philanthropy, altruism, etc., conceived by conditioned souls, is on the basis of this misconceived I and mine. Like, I will give to my community, but not to another community because this is my community. Or,
it's an extended type of selfishness.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, so he says that politics, sociology, philanthropy, altruism, etc., conceived by the conditioned souls, is on the basis of this misconceived I and mine, which are products of a strong desire to enjoy material life. identification with the body and the place where the body is obtained under different conceptions of socialism, nationalism, family affection, and so on, and so forth, is all due to forgetfulness of the real nature of the living entity. And the whole misconception of the bewildered living entity can be removed. How? By the association of Shukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Pariksit. As all this is explained. As all
It's amazing,
this is explained
this is why this is why this highest welfare work, the highest charity, is to give knowledge.
Yeah.
Because, like my son, it relieves you from the illusory fear of the material world. You said that yesterday too, or the Bhagavatam said that yesterday too.
Well, there you go. So, knowledge is the balm. Knowledge is the balm.
It's the balm and the bomb.
Yeah, it's what this human life is meant for, right? And as you mentioned, it said that there's no greater gift, right? There's nothing more relishable. There's nothing more valuable than transcendental knowledge. I think you could wrap it up right there.
I should. I was gonna. Oh, we have new T-shirts, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Before we get there, our website's not officially up yet, but you can go to.
I'll put it up on Facebook, but you go to, what is it, Merch Now or something?
Yeah, but what's their address?
Super Soul?
Oh yeah, it's supersoul .merch now. You can go to supersoulyoga.com and go to merchandise, and it all comes up there. And
I'll throw it up on Facebook today too.
Okay, I thought we had a different Sanskrit glossary goodie today, Upadi.
Yeah, well, you went in a different direction. That's cool.
Okay, all right, I appreciate that. We went into beasts and beings. Oh, well, there you go. 300th episode in the can. We did it.
All right.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah, there's the link Mary just posted. supersoul.merchnow.com. And give the gift of a Wisdom of the Sages t-shirt this year.
That was Parmananda put those designs together, too.
Yeah, thank you, Parmananda. We're grateful.
Excellent.
I want to thank everybody joining us here on 300 episodes. I really want to thank everybody who's just been here. I really want to thank the Californians and the others who I give no credit to. I just give credit to these Zoomers. But if you too want to become a Zoomer, you may. You just have to email Mara at wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com, and she will send you the secret codes to enter into our little club where we see each other every morning, wave to each other, call us out, and write each other various messages on the message board. This is like no Srimad Bhagavatam class you've ever been to, I can guarantee that. But I thank you for tolerating it and accepting it, and I hope it's been some use for you in your life. Let there be 300 more, 3,000 more. Let this go on until I leave my body. Haribol.